Hi there, I'm Metagross Freak, and today we're going to be looking really quickly, hopefully, at League of Legends, the notes for patch 8.4, and the PBE notes for League of Legends patch 8.5. As some of you may know, I'm a support main on League of Legends. I occasionally, though, do play top or mid, but primarily I play support, so this is going to be in the context of how it'll affect support mains. If you end up watching champions like Red Mercy, or like Solo, Renekton Only, and other League of Legends YouTubers like that, they'll of course talk about how it'll affect their roles respectively. Like Red Mercy plays jungle and mid a lot, so he'll be talking more about that. I'm not like part of his fan club or anything. I'm just saying that I'm going to be specifically giving context on how it'll affect support and maybe a little bit on champions that I play in other lanes. But 8.4 is a pretty big patch, having some major changes to AP items. Let's get started with Lost Chapter. Lost Chapter no longer builds directly into Merlinomicon. It has been changed to now instead build into Luden's Echo, Hextech GLP, and Archangel Staff. Not only that, but it has cooldown, making Lost Chapter a phenomenal item. Before, if you were playing a support, you would probably, if you were playing, a support that builds AP or some cooldown, or mana, or mana regen, you were probably going to go either Fiendish Codex, or probably Forbidden Idol as one of your first items. Lost Chapter, however, has some really attractive build paths. That being said, let's get right into it with Luden's Echo. Luden's Echo has, as you can see, a healthier build path, no longer needing a needlessly large rod, and instead having a Amp Tome, the Lost Chapter, and Blasting Wand. It loses the 10% movement speed and 10 ability power, but instead gains 500 mana, which is, phenomenal, and cooldown. Honestly, this is going to be really good on champions who need some extra poke, or some champions that are really good at poking for supports. This can be great on, for example, a support like Nami. I would definitely build this on Nami. It can also be really good on supports like Morgana, Lux, Annie, Zyra, whoever you decide to use for your support, for your AP supports. It's also just going to be good in general on mid laners or AP champions in other lanes as well. I didn't really build Hextech GLP all that often. Occasionally I would see it be built on like Swain or Maokai or Malphite, but I didn't really use it all that often. The biggest reason being it built from Catalyst of Aeons, and honestly, if you're going to have a item building from Catalyst of Aeons, I'd rather have either an Abyssal Mask or a Rod of Ages. Now, since it has a different build path, it no longer has Eternity, meaning you can have Hextech with one of those other two items. Hextech GLP, I think, works best if you have Glacial Augment, but it can work on support APs that need a little bit more crowd control. Someone like Morgana or Annie, who only have one real method for crowd control, this will make them more reliable. Plus, it's not that expensive of an item. You do lose the health, and the Eternity passive, but you gain 100 extra mana and you gain cooldown. However, the Frost Bolts themselves have been nerfed a little bit, so I would test it out in like bots or a custom game first before trying it in PvP. I didn't really build Archangel Staff that much to begin with. I rarely ever build Tear of the Goddess since I don't play Rise anymore, and Singed had his passive nerfed or adjusted. But if you find yourself building a lot of Tear of the Goddesses, Archangel Staff now has a adjusted build path, going from building from Needlessly Large Rod to Amp Tome and Lost Chapter. This, of course, means it gives you a significant bonus to mana. However, it does have less ability power. However, in exchange for those losses, you are gaining cooldown. I think if you tend to use a ton of mana on a champion such as, say, Sona or Soraka, this might be worth getting, especially if you're planning on getting that like just massive pool of mana to just spam however you'd like. I didn't really build Leandri's Torment or Morellonomicon that much on supports, so to me those aren't really big changes. Those are more changes to mid laners. However, there are two, technically one new items, but officially, quote-unquote, two, being Spellbinder and Twin Shadows that I think are worth taking a look at. Spellbinder is a actually new item, building from Aether Wisp and Needlessly Large Rod, aka it has Luden's Echo's old build path, giving you 100 ability power, which is great, and 10% movement speed. This would make it really good on champions like Janna, who benefit from the movement speed, but it's active, builds up, and consumes the stacks you build up in battle to give you 30% decay movement speed and 100 ability power for 4 seconds. Spellbinder, in my opinion, would be really great on champions like Morgana, who could totally use that movement speed for her ult, or champions like, for example, Annie or Lux or Zyra, who can use not only the bonus movement speed to get in position better, but the ability power to deal some more damage. But I really see it being useful on Janna, because of Janna's passive, or Morgana to stack with her ult, because really Morgana needs the movement speed for her ult. It can also potentially be good on Swain, though keep in mind this is primarily a AP item, so you're not going to be having any of the kind of tankier AP items that Swain would benefit mostly from. We also have Twin Shadows. Twin Shadows is a returning item. Now that Frost Queen's Claim basically no longer exists, instead we have the Eye of the Watchers and its upgraded form. Remnant of the Watchers and the Eye of the Watchers, excuse me. Twin Shadows basically is returning the Frost Queen's Claim power where it deserves. We have movement speed, cooldown, ability power, and spooky ghosts. I loved building Twin Shadows on AP supports before, and I know I'm going to still love it now. I even love it that they put the question mark under new, because even they know it's not a technically new item, it's just a returning item. There aren't a lot of other big bonuses. I mean, Rylai's does have 10 more ability power, meaning it's a little more viable on, again, champions like maybe Morgana, or Annie, or Lux, or Zyra, who could benefit from having that slow. It can also be good on characters like Rakan or Nami, who maybe just need a little bit more of a bonus slow to help out their lack of damage. We also have a buff to Fiddlesticks. Fiddlesticks, even though he is not officially a support champion, he's actually supposed to be a mid and jungler. He gets bonus damage and lowered cooldown to Dark Wind, meaning he'd be really obnoxious as a support, and he also gets lowered cooldown to Crowstorm. So just if you play support Fiddlesticks, or Supportal Sticks, or Fiddle Support, I don't know, whatever you call it, he is more viable now as a support champion because of those buffs. We're seeing some adjustments to Kog'Maw and to Callista. I don't really know a lot about those champions because I don't play them, but we also have some minor adjustments you can see here to Tristana and Twitch. So hopefully if you see them a lot in your lane, they won't hinder you too much. Zoe is getting basically a giant nerf because everyone hates Zoe. I have never played Zoe, and I've only played against her maybe like 5 or 10 times, but I just absolutely hate her. I'm glad she's getting nerfed at the wazoo. And of course we have some adjustments to other support items. As you can see, the Ancient Coin line is gains bonus movement speed, which is nice, especially on champions that build it like Janna or Soraka or Rakan. Relic Shield is gaining a nerf to its health, which is honestly a bummer because that makes it less viable. But for some reason, solo laners have been picking it up lately, especially a lot of characters in the top lane like Gangplank and Ornn and Garen. However, once you see 8.5 and how it has been adjusted, I think you'll see that the Relic line nerf is actually kind of overkill. Just keep in mind right now, The reduction to health is a nerf to tanky supports like Leona, even I guess support Zac, and other other tanky supports like that. Tracker's Knife has been removed, but again we'll see that coming back in another patch or two. And then Wit's End has been adjusted. I don't see a lot of champions building Wit's End, but if you're a fan of building basically like attack speed, like hybrid items, basically if you are one of those people who plays like hybrid attack speed Lulu, or if you're familiar with the upcoming champion Kaisa, the Daughter of the Void, this buff, I guess you could call it, to Wit's End is actually pretty good. We also do have a couple little adjustments. In Resolve, we have a new keystone called, I guess it's a keystone called Bone Plating, which basically, if you take damage from an enemy, you take less damage for 5 seconds. This is honestly kind of good. It'd be really good on, again, champions like Leona or Taric. Unflinching has been moved down a bit, but Demolish and Font of Life are unaffected. Meanwhile, Iron Shell, Mirror Shell, and Conditioning have gained a new roommate. Second Wind has been moved there. Second Wind was pretty great already, though I think that having Conditioning and Second Wind in the same tier kind of, once again, nerfs some tanky champions. However, now we have in the bottom row Overgrowth, Revitalize, which are both good, and Unflinching. I don't know how this adjustment will how much of an effect this will have, but I know it'll affect some tanky supports a bit. So I'm gonna have to take a look at my own personal builds to see how it'll affect me in the long run. Inspiration, for those of you who have been building a lot of Inspiration, have also had some adjustments. The biggest nerf being that it no longer grants the increased potion duration. Haha, losers. Also, the biggest thing in my opinion, it was they took away Celestial Body. I personally hated Celestial Body because the only champions it was really good on was like Rakan and Janna. Also, they nerfed Commencing Stopwatch, making it transform at 10 minutes instead of 5, so haha to all you stopwatch users. But they gave instead the original bonus for choosing Inspiration to Time Warp Tonic, making all potions, elixirs, and biscuits last 20% longer, and you gain 5% movement speed bonus while under that. I didn't like Celestial Body before, but with Time Warp Tonic, it's actually kind of worth using now, especially since it's in the same tier as Approach Velocity. I like both of them, but I don't really use Inspiration a lot, so that makes the decision harder, but I think they're both equally good decisions. Blast Cones do spawn at different times now. It's kind of weird, but again, this shouldn't affect you too much. Baron buff has been adjusted a little bit. Elder Dragon buff has been adjusted a little bit. But overall, nothing too crazy. Moving on to PBE 8.5. If I can click on it, there we go. Obviously, we have tons of notes on Kaisa. We don't really care about that right now. Instead, we're jumping down a ways, hopefully. There we go. We're jumping down to some minor balance changes, primarily being Galio. I don't know how many people actually played Galio support. I think it's hilarious, but his cooldown on his E has been increased, making it a little bit harder for him to dive as frequently. But really, that's more of a balance change, nothing too surprising. Tristana, as you may have seen, got a cooldown lower on her ultimate in 8.4, and now her cooldown is just being adjusted even more to Buster Shot in 8.5. So obviously, they're realizing that Tristana needs kind of a buff. at least in her ult department. Her attack range is being lowered, and her cooldown on rapid fire is being adjusted. I'm not a big fan of that, but I don't see people using Tristana a lot anyway. In my opinion, the bigger thing that matters is the return of Shurelia's Reverie, which, if you're familiar, basically had the Talisman of Ascension active after it was temporarily removed for like 2 seasons. So Shurelia's Reverie has been given a new build path, building from a Kindle Gem and an Aether Wisp, giving, of course, 40 AP, 200 health, 10% cooldown, 8% movement speed, and the active of giving you basically just a Talisman of Ascension active. If you are familiar with the old Shurelia's Reverie, the build path is fairly different, not giving you mana regen or health regen, but that's okay. I see this as being a good item on champions that build the Ancient Coin line, because really it's a good active. I see this being really nice on champions like Janna and Rakan, who need not only some AP to help them actually do things, but some tankiness and movement speed, especially on Rakan to help him get his spells off, and Janna for letting her deal a little bit more damage through her passive, and as well as just more damage through the AP and some survivability, because we all know that Janna's made of tissue paper. However, remember that thing I said about the support items? Well, they've all been nerfed even more. Basically, now, Ancient Coin, Frost Fang, and Relic Shield and everything have had an additional nerf. They no longer grant Bandit, and killing a minion or monster disables their ability to gain stacks and gold generation for like 12 seconds. To me, this seems like overkill, because now support items can only be used on supports. We were originally seeing champions like Gangplank and Garen building like Relic Shield, for example, top lane, or seeing, mid laners like Malzahar building these items in the mid lane. Very rarely, though, and mostly in the pro tiers for Korea. Not as much in the more casual play that I'm in. Ironically enough, we do still have on the Ancient Coin line a reference to Shurelia, which I do think is kind of nice, because now we have 2 bonuses and 2 references, in game to Shurelia. If you're familiar with her story and her effect on Riot, you'll be kind of glad about that. But again, a nerf to support items is only going to hurt supports. But at least we get some new items to play around with. However, there is a bonus to Frostfang, Nomad's Medallion, giving us bonus gold in exchange for the nerf, basically, of the stack, the stack pausing. We get more gold per proc, I guess. Relic Shield still has the reduced health from 8.4, which isn't really going to help it all that much. Relic Shield is kind of looking even worse and worse now, which is really sad, because I really like the Relic Shield line. Same thing with Remnant of the Aspect and its upgraded form. But yeah, I mean, just it's all just very disappointing. Interesting note is there is a new keystone in Precision, that being Conqueror. After 4 seconds in combat, your first attack against enemy champions grant you bonus AD based on your level for 4 seconds, and converts 20% of damage to true damage. This is going to be really good on marksmen, especially champions that are more burst oriented, like, for example, Vayne, Draven, and Varus. But it also has the bonus of melee champions. Damaging enemy champions refreshes this buff. This is going to be phenomenal on fighter champions. I see like Darius and Poppy and like other top laners like maybe Gnar taking this. Kind of interesting. I think it's weird though that the artwork looks like Galio's fist. I feel this is basically just a Galio passive on top of as a keystone. It's kind of weird. Not going to complain though. It might be fun to have on the occasional ADC, And good to know then as a support, because that means any ADC taking Conqueror, all I need to do is just grab someone or just snare them or something, and they can deal a lot more damage. As a support laner, you end up having to help out a lot with Dragon, especially if you're mid or jungle or ADC are in it as well. You're just kind of like, hey, everyone, head over to Dragon. There is a bonus for the Cloud Drake. Instead of giving flat out of combat movement speed, it gives now %. This is going to be really great, of course, on Janna and Rakan, as well as kind of nice to some less mobile supports like Leona or Morgana, or even Braum. That'd be kind of nice on Braum. There's also going to be, I think, a slight change to how, I'm not paying attention to all these ads. I saw that there's a change to how Baron buff and Elder Dragon buff works, so hopefully not that big of an adjustment. And then last but not least, I want to talk about Kai'Sa. I don't really know for sure how her name is pronounced, but the new voice champion, aka we have Khazadin's daughter here. She seems like she'd be a really good jungler, or a really good mid laner, or a really good ADC. I'm honestly not too sure. She is a hybrid ADC who has really good assassin potential. So who knows how she'll end up fitting into the meta. I just know she looks kind of cool. I personally like her with the helmet more. I just like her with the helmet more than just having her head exposed, because it's basically she's wearing a symbiote suit. Obviously, we'll get to see more of her as time goes on. But, this has been Metagross Freak taking a look at patch 8.4 and 8.5 PBE from a support player's perspective. Until next time, have a great one, and I hope to see you all on the league.